So continuing on popularity, so video 4 is just linking back to popularity of sports. Just sort of recapping where we're at. The word infrastructure, okay, it means what's available, is transport available to and from that venue, is the provision good, so provision comes under infrastructure, and what's available and the build up around that, has it got a good history. Another factor could be affecting the popularity is the participation levels. Okay, so you look at a couple of different sports, football versus diving. In the local area, we've got probably from youth level to professional level, probably over 100, probably way over 100 teams for football. That's females and males, disabilities. So that's everyone. Probably more, looking at probably more 500 teams. And then you compare that to professional diving or diving. I think we've got one diving board in the whole of Dorset. Okay, so the participation levels in football is very high because the provision is readily available. Same as if you look at ice hockey versus netball, because of our climate, ice hockey's we hardly do it because we haven't got any ice rinks nearby. Versus netball, again, probably you're looking at plus 500 teams in the local area. Okay, so if the participation level is high, it encourages more people to do it, so the popularity of that sport will go up. A couple of terms that they might ask you about is mass participation. Mass participation means loads of people do it. Okay, so mass participation, it means that lots of people do it, it's readily available, it's relatively cheap, and usually will come along with a strong infrastructure, strong heritage, there are proper officials for it, so it's got lots of things going on in the background to help support that sport. So that will have a positive impact on the popularity of the sport. Provision we looked at. Just a couple of extra examples here. So you think of the nearest tennis court near us. Obviously we've got one at schools, at David Lloyd's, and then do like in the park areas, there's tennis courts readily available. Compared to diving boards we mentioned earlier, there's hardly any. So provision, remember what's available and how easily accessible it is. Same as ski jumping, I talked about winter sports earlier. Okay, we don't have a ski jumping area. And there probably isn't one until up to sort of Milton Keynes area. Again, so the provision will affect the popularity. So popularity of a sport that's easily available, like tennis, popularity will go up. Things that haven't got good provision, like ski jumping, hardly any in the country, will be low. So it'll be low for skiing. Provision is readily, there's loads of tennis courts available. Environment we spoke about, so lack of snow, too much rain to have snow, dry slopes are not the same as being on powdery snow, and again that will affect the popularity. We spoke about that earlier. Huge effect. Our climate's perfect for things like football, for netball, for rugby, for outdoor sports that don't require a certain amount of snow or rain. We can play in all weathers. Spectatorship we mentioned. What's shown live weekly, we mentioned football, rugby, netball, okay? However, things like swimming, volleyball come on every now and then, Olympics maybe, Paralympics, or Commonwealth, you might see the swimming, okay? So we're going to have low spectatorship watching those, whereas high spectatorship watching the football, rugby, because they're on weekly, they're regularly being played, so people go to watch them or watch them on TV. And again, that affects the popularity, because it's easy to watch something that's on TV or go down the road to watch it rather than fly over to Austria, to Canada to watch the skiing. Again, media coverage. BBC have sole coverage of Wimbledon, sole meaning complete coverage of Wimbledon, so you have to watch it on the BBC. Okay, so they have that for that amount of time that the Wimbledon's on. Sky Sports and football. It costs them a lot of money to have it. It costs millions and billions of pounds, but they are pretty much, and BT Sport as well, have sole coverage of football for the Premier League, and they let other TVs stream it out. But good media coverage increases the popularity. Remember, it's all about popularity. So good media coverage will increase popularity. If it's not on the media a lot, then like volleyball, swimming, then popularity of that sport doesn't rise as much. Success we mentioned. So for example, Sir Chris Hoy, won 5 Olympic gold medals, and that massively boosted cycling. So all of a sudden, a lot of people were doing road biking, buying the equipment because his success in the Olympics. So his success, and he's also a good role model, which is the next one. Okay, same as Tom Daley in the diver, because he was so young, he rose popularity of diving. Not by huge amounts, because the provision's not very good, but it did rise when he was on TV doing the Olympics, or the Commonwealth. And again, that's what we just mentioned, role models. So, a negative impact. So there's not many Asian football players in the Premier League. There's some, but the more ethnic minorities that play in the Premier League rise the popularity, and so therefore positive role models. Okay, so a lot of the football teams now will go out and do tours in Africa, Asia, to rise the profile of football, to create more role models in the sport. And last one is acceptability. So, a couple of examples here. So horse riding, some people might deem whipping the horse as animal cruelty. So is that sport acceptable? Football's acceptable, rugby's acceptable. Some people might say rugby's a bit barbaric, but generally in the UK it's acceptable. But however, things like boxing, they might be deemed as someone who wants to fight. So someone who maybe doesn't know much about the industry will think, oh, it's just a bunch of thugs or a bunch of yobs who want to fight. So their perception will affect the popularity, because they'll think, I don't want to do boxing because it's barbaric, it's not humane. Okay, whereas, and the same thing with horse riding, actually I don't, it's unethical to whip the horse. And that will affect the popularity. So is that sport deemed acceptable?